5P with LaMondre is being brought to you by Root Global Impact, a multifaceted disability inclusion firm that amplifies your impact and creates inclusion leaders. For more information about Root Global, contact us at rootglobal.com. That's RUHglobal.com. On today's edition of 5P with LaMondre, we're going to be talking about how to get unstuck. You know, when you're trying to do some things and you feel like you're in a rut and you can't move forward. Well, today we're talking about how to make those moves happen. Let's go.
Welcome to 5P with LaMondre, the podcast that's all about the 5 Ps. People, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. If you're looking to be encouraged, inspired, and challenged, then this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, LaMondre.
Welcome to 5P with LaMondre. I am LaMondre, and I'm so excited about this show. First of all, I'm super happy that you chose to listen to this podcast today, and I promised it will be time well spent. We are just into the New Year's. It is now the end of February. The beginning of March is about to happen. And we made a lot of resolutions at the beginning of the year. And now is about the time when we start realizing, well, we're not quite going to the gym like we promised that we would, or our eating habits have not stayed in the way that we promised they would. In other words, we feel like we are probably stuck in a rut. Well, never fear, because on today's show, I have someone who will help us get unstuck. She is an author. She's a speaker. She is a speaker's coach. She's written a book called Jamaica 101 and Speak to Win. She is none other than Totlyn Oliver. Totlyn, welcome to 5P.
Thank you so much, LaMondre, for having me, and thank you for such a warm welcome.
Well, the only reason it was warm is because it's all true. Totlyn, you are one of the people that I absolutely admire, because the thing that I've realized about you is that not only are you elegant, not only are you excellent at everything you do, you are one of the most giving and nurturing people that I've ever met. And so having you on the show today is an absolute honor for me. Now, I want to jump into this subject. As you heard in the intro, I talked about New Year's resolutions. And honestly, it's not just about the resolutions. Many times people feel as if they're stuck, like we're in a rut. And you have some advice on how we can get unstuck.
Indeed. Boop. Have you ever felt stuck at all in your life, LaMondre?
Absolutely.
I have also felt stuck in my life. Not once, not twice, but innumerable times. And each time, what worked the last time no longer works this time.
Right.
Because every moment that you're stuck at a different stage of your life. You're never the same that you were 6 months ago or 6 years ago. You would have changed. No matter how much you think you're doing the same things over and over, no matter how much you think that you're probably weighing the same 100 pounds, yes, wishful thinking, the fact is that we have gone through new things every day. And I like what you said about the New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are only just that, in name and words only. New Year's resolutions really ought to be changed and probably never said anymore. However, we do enter new phases of our life every single minute of the day.
Right.
And what I have come to the conclusion about is that many of us carry around a lot of unfinished business. A lot of people may also call it baggage. I asked myself the question the other day, earlier this week, why is it that I always seem to feel so light? Why is it that it always seemed to be that I don't have any issues? But the thing is, I have found a way to practice the art of not carrying baggage. because that's what weighs you down. And that's what helps you to feel stuck.
Right. So now when we talk about baggage in itself or this extra luggage, these extra weights that people carry, what are some of the examples of those?
The first one, the overarching baggage that people carry, is one of fear.
Fear.
Fear. I'm afraid if I lose this job. I'm afraid if I lose this relationship. I'm afraid if I miss out on the opportunities. I'm afraid that I might miss having a good time if I don't spend that money and purchase that ticket or go on that vacation that my friends are going on that I think I need to be a part of. So fear drives a lot of people's stuckness. Fear. And it also can be the fear of the unknown. Not only do they fear what they know or they are afraid of happening, but they do fear the unknown. One of the big fears that I especially work with are people who have fear of public speaking. And that's a gigantic fear of all fears.
Right.
And many people are stuck because they cannot even open their mouths in front of themselves, much less a crowd.
Wow.
When you are afraid to voice to your own self some of the issues you're having, you're unable to voice to your own self the things that bother your heart, bother your mind, bother your soul. What happens is that you don't even want to hear yourself say that. You know what? I'm really upset with what LaMondre said to me last week. Let me process and figure out why LaMondre said that to me. So sometimes, but I'm having such a good relationship here with LaMondre that I don't want to disturb that. So let me push that to the back of my mind. Let me say first up that I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I am simply an observer and a liver in this life.
Right.
And yes, I've read extensively and I've read a whole lot. And at the end of the day, each of us has our own work to do. We have our own soul therapy to do. What may work for you, getting unstuck, it may not work for me. What worked for me might just work for you. So definitely in working with people who have fears of public speaking or they have challenges, you can always link it back to some other issues that are going on in their lives. And part of my thrust, part of my work as the CEO of Gold Speak LLC, which is a public speaking event management company, one of our goals is to create a platform for people to stand on, speak their truth, talk about issues they have faced, and how they overcome them. And when others hear those stories, when others watch and see how people just like them go through some life-changing events and find the tools, and these tools don't mean sitting in a psychiatrist's office for 36 weeks of hour-long visits at whatever they cost. But it means that people have to get up every day and talk themselves into living life.
Right. So let's talk a little bit more about the fears and what it actually looks like when what does it mean to really be stuck? Because we have a general concept of it, but I really want to delve a little bit more deeply into what it means to be stuck. So what does it mean to be stuck?
To be stuck means you feel like nothing is going right. To be stuck means it feels like there is something more you should be doing and it's not being done. Right. It's like you don't have the time, you don't have the money, you don't have all the ideas, you don't have the tools, or so you think.
Right.
And you feel like there is no way to get out of this rut. Why am I living in the space that I'm living in right now? It's not even sufficient space. Why am I even living in this neighborhood? This is not where I want to live right now. Why am I in this job? Yes, it pays the bills, but it's so unfulfilling. How do I get around this? Or it could be, I'm in this relationship for 5 years or 15 years or 20 years, but I cannot seem to move on. Or I've left that relationship 5 years now, but I still feel stuck.
But you still carry the connection of that relationship,
Precisely. And you simply can, sometimes it's so nondescript. You cannot quite put your finger on it.
Right.
But you have this sense of not going anywhere. And I like to call it divine discontent.
Divine discontent.
Divine discontent.
Explain that.
What I mean by this is that we can be going along in life, getting the bills paid, saving the money, even working towards buying that house, buying that new car, taking that dream vacation. Could be even marrying your dream spouse. But somewhere along the line, could be in the midst of raising children, but somewhere in the midst of all of that, you feel like there is something more.
Mm-hmm.
And you are afraid to voice that there should be something more because you feel guilty that why should I feel this discontent when everything else seems to be going so good? But inside, I feel like I'm stuck.
Right. And you know what the interesting thing about that is, even though it may be one particular area that you're stuck in, the manifestation of that positioning becomes realized in other areas of your life.
Exactly.
And so I get the divine discontentment in there because it almost becomes an ambiguous kind of cloud that hangs over almost everything you do. You could be excelling in your career. You could be excelling in your relationships in terms of friendships, but there may be something in a personal romantic relationship that you're still holding on to that clouds all of that.
Exactly.
So that stuckness, I think that's the new word, stuckness.
Stuckness.
That stuckness then really manifests itself in so many other areas, just like fear does. And you said that was one of the primary root causes for being stuck.
Exactly. There's an exercise I do in my coaching session for public speaking. People who want to better their public speaking skills and get over the fears or some of the challenges they have. And the exercise I do, LaMondre, is to have the individuals draw even a stick figure of themselves at 10 years old.
Okay.
And when they draw this figure of themselves, some are really very good at art, some not. But the fact is, they are doing this tactile activity of drawing themselves at 10 years old. Some people draw themselves riding a bicycle. Some people just draw their heads. Some people just draw themselves really, really nicely dressed up. Some people just draw themselves in stick, but then they have a baseball. It's interesting what comes out. However, they do this exercise. There are no rules. You can color, black and white, marker pen, it doesn't matter.
Now, what does this exercise do?
I am coming to that just now. With that exercise, with that drawing, I ask people, and I talk about it in my book, Speak to Win, 7 even steps to mastering your fears of public speaking. They need to write down 3 adjectives that they were called, positive or negative, doesn't matter. And they also need to write down 3 nicknames they were called, positive or negative. We're not judging here. We're just unearthing some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You would be amazed, LaMondre, to hear how people are still ruled at age 30, 40, 50, 60 by some of those very adjectives I asked them to write down. You would be amazed to see where people think of themselves so small, and it's represented. They have a 8 by 10, a normal letter size sheet of paper to draw on, and they draw themselves very tiny in one corner. You have another set of people who draw themselves with a big face in the middle. They're the center. You have another set of people who draw in details. And the very act of doing that drawing tells you everything about that person.
Wow.
Amazing stuff. And then you start to peel back the layers like of a lettuce, a head of lettuce. And you peel back the layers by asking people the questions. Now, what was said to you at age 10? Does it still affect you? Positive or negative? And invariably, they say yes. That's an exercise I can invite you as a listener to try right now and ask yourself those questions. You see, a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist is well trained and certified to ask you certain questions. But what happens between the time you discover you're stuck and you make the decision to get to someone?
Right.
Sometimes a year, 2 years, 20 years pass before you do that.
Right. And I believe it's always good to self-evaluate and see where you are.
Exactly.
And that does not necessarily require a therapist, but it actually may point to the fact that you may need one. Precisely. So I think it's always good to do things that cause you to look at yourself.
Exactly.
In the mirror.
Hence the word divine discontent. Because the divine discontent is the divine opportunity to search out, as you said the word, self-evaluate. Why am I feeling stuck? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Why can't I move from this position? Sometimes we have outgrown the purpose that we have set for ourselves a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago.
Right. Life is seasonal.
Exactly. And we forget that in the busyness of living our lives. We forget that in the business of being an employee or a business owner, a daughter, a mother, a wife, a husband, a great tennis player, whatever. And also sometimes our community does not allow us to grow because they want you to remain exactly how you are used to being in that community. So, okay, you're a great leader. They don't want you to go anywhere else. They want you to stay right here.
Right.
For the next 20, 30, 40 years and lead this whole shebang.
Right.
But you're still feeling stuck.
Right. Right. Even though you have accomplished and obviously you have respect and you have certain adoration within that community, you personally are not fulfilled anymore. And it's time for you to continue on your own personal journey. I love the fact that you used that example because many times people see people and they think, well, they've got it all together. They're as you said, they're the leader. They're the person who makes this thing happen. And we have a tendency to think that they're set, that they're not stuck, that they are content with where they are, but they still have dreams, desires, and aspirations just like everyone else. So that was a very beautiful example to share with that. I want to move this to a different to a different focus. I want to know, because you have given us so far so much wisdom and so much depth in that, how did you get involved in this work?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. How much time do we have, LaMondre? I think probably this work started from I was a little girl. And I tell you why. As a little girl, I was very quiet, but I observed a lot.
A little girl where?
I grew up in Jamaica.
I couldn't tell it?
You couldn't tell me. Because we're not talking about a Jamaican accent. That's why, right? Because
I love
I'm
your
not.
accent. I absolutely love your accent.
Thank you so much.
Say my name, LaMondre. Say
LaMondre.
There you go.
Observing, and I grew up in a suburban part of my country, Jamaica, in the capital city. But I also had the wonderful experience of spending many summers in the rural areas where my grandparents were. And they were business owners. They were lead business owners in their community, having, that grocery store and having the community bar and the dance hall next to it and so on. So you learned from observation. You learned and see how people are. And the quotient of people's emotionality or lack thereof. But you saw friendliness, you saw interactions. You heard how people spoke about if a girl became pregnant without being married in the community. You heard, but when the baby is born, everybody wants to see that baby and, ooh, the baby is so pretty, kind of thing. As if they didn't say all the things they said about her while she was pregnant and who she's pregnant for.
Right.
But fast forward to my young adult life when I became involved in theater. And then followed that, I was involved in studying literature and politics and sociology. And I saw that there was a common thread throughout everything I was exposed to, including just navigating my own life. I was raised by a single parent, and she herself was a businesswoman, very multi-talented, still alive, still doing the same things, working hard, that kind of thing. However, in those observations and also in my own life growing up and figuring out who I was, my relationship with my mother, figuring out my relationship with my father. We didn't grow up with our father. Our father always lived away, but we saw him every now and again. But it wasn't ever like he was never there. Mm-hmm. It was like he's always present. And we had this relatively close relationship. And then I became a broadcaster. And in using up all my knowledge from my university studies, I did postgraduate studies in communication, did my undergrad in literature and social sciences, as mentioned before, and I'd been doing theater for all my life. And just the cacophony of personalities and experiences of the West Indian experience, influenced by the North American experience, influenced by the British holdover, the European thing, and having those kinds of exposures mushroomed into something more than just having one single life experience.
Right.
So it's like you're living multiple life experiences even all at once. Because in playing a character on stage, when you're an actress or an actor, you have to get into the mind of that character and figure out why is it that they were the way they are,
right,
and portray that on stage. That's why people go to Broadway.
Right.
And fast forward again, coming out of broadcasting, I ended up, because I was a broadcaster, people asking, can you teach a class on speech presentation, on oral presentations? I said, sure. And I took the time to go through and explain. Then I also had the experience of working with a group of vocational students in a vocational training center, in a national vocational training center in Jamaica, where we had the students, learners, who did not finish high school. They probably had a grade 6 level education, if that high, but these people were adults, 18 up to 40, 45. And I had the task of teaching them English language that they were not familiar with. They didn't have any passes or subjects, as they would call it, in this language. And in getting to understand how people process their experience, I was able to teach English language to people who would rather speak a dialect, because the dialect is more expressive than their inherited language of English, standard British English. When you began to understand people and how their heart beat and how their emotions run, then you begin to realize that people are not just bodies in a schoolroom or bodies in a workplace. There are many things that are taking place. They're carrying with them the experiences of how they grew up,
right,
good, bad, or indifferent. They're carrying with them their experiences of their race, of their gender, of their preferences in life, whether they like music, whether they believe in God or don't believe in God.
Right.
They're carrying with them a whole cacophony of experiences in this one life. And sometimes they just don't know where they are along the spectrum.
Right.
I had one young lady in a university class of mine, and I noticed she started our course late. She was doing business communication. I was a lecturer. But I would always take time to make sure she was okay. Till finally one day she came to me and she said, I want to speak with you. Spoke with her and spoke to her about the business of, what's going on with her. So she told me some of the issues she was having at home, and including she was saying, she's fearful that she's becoming an alcoholic. And I said, okay. And she told me some of the situations she was facing, issues with mother. But yet, here is this young lady at the university studying for a degree in business. Anyway, as we walk through the various exercises in that speech course, in that business communication course, she turned out to be one of the most improved individuals because I was able to walk her through some very simple steps, very simple repeated steps that she must do. Affirmation, certain prayers. I'm a believer in God.
Right.
And certain prayers she needed to have prayed.
And that's what I want to get to that. I want to get to the, let's talk about how, because I think this is great because I think that one of the things that we certainly want to do with 5Ps, we always want to leave people with the concept of, okay, and this is how you can apply these same principles to your life. So this is great. So affirmations. And these affirmations literally came from the Holy Bible, the Christian Bible. And I showed her the Psalms that she's to read and pray because they bolstered up her spirit. It is not required for you to be a member of a church or belong to a Bible study or small church group. No, it is about working on your spirituality with what you know. And what I know is the Christian faith. Right.
And that is what worked for me. And I've explored many other faiths.
And I think that's an important point to bring up also, that it's not even about being a Christian. It is just about being able to tap into the spirituality that you have within you. And the way that you found was through your belief or your faith in Christianity.
Exactly. Right? You know, because I've studied Raj Yoga. I've studied singing the cue. I've looked at Buddhism. But my thing is, I am a voracious learner. Just because I'm studying it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm into this now. No. I'm not like that because I am not someone who attach myself to things just because they're out there. Not even Christianity for that matter.
Right.
But I believe that it's our responsibility as we grow through life to find the tools that really, 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 really work for us. Some people are so closed-minded. If they're Buddhists, for instance, they wouldn't read a Christian book. Or if they're Christians, they won't even read a Jehovah's Witness book.
Right.
Read it, and see if you agree with all of it, parts of it, or none of it. But don't just say no to it. And that's another reason, too, LaMondre, people get stuck. They keep on saying no to the things that they think are not for them.
Right.
And sometimes the very things you're saying no to are the things you must experience to grow to the next level.
You know, I agree with that. And I also think that sometimes people say no to something that they have not even seen or heard. Because I understand if you've investigated it and you recognize that this is not for me, then that's one thing. But to say no without even the investigation or even looking into it in any way, shape, or form. And I think that that's when we limit ourselves and we begin to develop these prejudice and we begin to develop these biases based on ignorance.
Exactly.
Because we simply don't know. And this is something that I found. I found that even if it's not all for me, usually if I'm looking at something from a spiritual perspective or even from a cultural perspective, I can find something in it that will be beneficial to my personal development, even if that thing is, well, I know I'm not going to do that, you know. So
exactly.
That's still something that is beneficial to me. So exactly. I definitely agree. That experience definitely elevates your experience.
Yes, you know? Indeed. And I tell you this, that no that you just spoke about, that people said no to the stuff, is the foundation of that no is fear. And again, it leads back to that fear keeping you stuck.
Right.
That fear leads back to keeping you stuck. Take, for instance, I was fearful of becoming a mother. I did not no way, no hell wanted to become a mother. I thought that my mother did a good enough job. There was no need for a repeat performance.
Okay.
However, I became a mom. And when I received it, when I accepted, okay, this is what it is, I'm like, wow. I know it was no accident, no. But what I found interesting is my own personal growth to the very experience I swore up and down I never wanted to experience, because I observed my mom being a single mom. And it must not have been easy. Yes, she succeeded, but she succeeded. I don't need to go through that kind of thing.
Right.
And that taught me a very big lesson, LaMondre, to be non-judgmental. Because, I had certain thoughts about women who became pregnant and they were not married and blah, blah, blah. The truth is, you don't know anybody's situation. And coming to accept yourself in a situation where prior to you would not have accepted yourself and your condition.
Right.
And I didn't get pregnant as a child or a teenager, but as a grown woman, a grown accomplished woman. And it was not something you know what? I need to have a child. My biological clock is ticking.
Right. So you weren't on that one.
No. No. But here's the thing. As I was saying to someone a couple of days ago, sometimes the very thing you're saying no to is the thing you need to grow. And I have grown away from many of my fears just going through the process of becoming a mother and being a parent. And that helped me grow considerably. I wouldn't choose it from a whole lot of choices. However, I am happy to have had the experience, because now it grew me into a more faith-filled person. Mm-hmm. I worried less about life, and I trusted the process of life more. So I let go. I became unstuck. And when I became pregnant, it was a time when I myself was feeling stuck. Just one of the stages I was feeling stuck at in my life. I had my car. I had 3 different things in a day that I did that I enjoyed. I had a mini business. I had my house, bought my house and everything. And I'm like, something is missing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say to you, LaMondre, that, well, I need a baby to fill the void. Nope. That was the last thing on my mind. I couldn't say, oh, I needed to get married. Nope. I need to get another degree. Nope. Nothing that I knew of answered that void.
Right. And that's exactly what we were talking about in the beginning, how everything can be going peachy in terms of what things look like and how we've been taught that things should be. But if that voice, if there is still that emptiness, if there is still that void, that's because there is some area that has not developed or is not where it should be. Mm-hmm. I get that. So affirmations, accepting what is as is, and what else?
And what else? I tell you, to live each day as it comes, to live each day minute by minute, to not take things personally. Oh, and how could I forget? You really do need to read voraciously. When you are on a path of self-discovery, which, by the way, never ends.
Right.
What may work for you last year may not work in another 10 years. And it means that you're growing. Sometimes you're growing faster than you think. Sometimes you're growing slower than you expect. But the fact of the matter is, you need to find those books to read. It's not only if you're a Christian believer, it's not only Christian writers you read, but you read people like Les Brown, or you read books by Gary Zukav, or you read books by, what's his name? Thomas More. Mm-hmm. Or you read books like any book that resonates with your consciousness, that resonates with your soul. Take the time and read that book. I know people don't invest in reading as much as one time with all the various streaming television and movie channels that they have now.
Right.
And I do know that there are audibles that people may consistently listen to. People read novels of fiction a lot. But I propose that people read other material that will help them. Sometimes it's one book. Sometimes it's 5 books. Sometimes it's a process where you're journaling. Everybody's into journaling. I found, LaMondre, that when I journaled, I wrote down all the things that I was worried about or distressed about.
Oh.
And I'm like, you know what? This don't make no sense. Maybe we should do a joke journal. What is the joke you heard today?
Oh.
Yeah. I was at another seminar recently and I said to the individuals, I said, keep a money journal. What do I mean? Every day they're in your skin. Fix your credit. Of course, in the United States. And we know that we have friends listening everywhere, every corner of the world. But they tell you to fix your budget and worry about your credit score and if you qualify for a loan and whatnot. But nobody says to you, LaMondre, keep a money journal. Write down that you found 1 cent on the ground outside your car in the car park today. Keep a money journal because sometimes we get gift cards as gifts. Sometimes because of a particular activity, you are awarded a gift card. Sometimes someone says, you know what? I will buy you lunch today. That's money coming to you.
Right.
And for those of us who want to struggle, note I said, who want to struggle with money issues, writing a money journal helps. And it's not about planning how much money you're going to work or how much money you're going to earn and how you're going to spend it and where you're going to spend it and your bills and do a budget. No, I'm not talking about that. The moment you notice I mention all of those things, I know people start to tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say to you, write a money journal. The other day I did in 2019, I did a series of, yes, I'm a woman of many talents. I was promoting wines for the European Union.
Okay.
For which I was handsomely paid, and I got paid to drink wine. Wasn't that wonderful?
That is a wonderful gig.
Now, I'm not a sommelier. I don't wish to be one. But here's what happened. I did a series of wine tastings in the state of South Carolina and got paid. They told me I had to travel some distance in some occasions, and they told me that they didn't have a budget for traveling. I said, hey, no worries. I'll go anyway. Again, I was well paid and I got to drink wine and meet some lovely folk too. However, at the end of it, when the agent saw that some of the distances were pretty far, she said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that you get paid. I don't care if it's approved. I'm going to make sure that you get paid for all this travel. And so said, so done. Fast forward to January of 2020. I got an envelope in the mail, a registered envelope. I'm like, where's this from? When I opened the envelope, there was a $100 gift card in the envelope saying, congratulations, thank you so much for being our hero from the same company. I'm like, what? Where, when, how?
Fantastic.
So my point is that once you open up your heart to being unstuck, trying something different,
right,
thinking differently, but all this takes work. Everything I'm talking about, LaMondre, did not happen overnight for me.
Right.
I had to sometimes work through things doing art. I couldn't describe what it was. I remember maybe a year and a half ago, I had to started to draw circles and hand color the circles. When I was done, it looked like a giant eye.
Wow.
And my issue at that time was, how do I move from the periphery of my life to the center of my life?
Right. Right.
That was a struggle I was having then. Who could I talk to about this? I had to work on this on my own.
Right.
What do you mean, move from the periphery of your life to the center of your life? I felt I was outside the juice of my life.
Wow.
I felt like I was skimming the outside of my life. And I'm like, why can't I be in the center of my life? Note, not the center of somebody else's world.
But the center of my own world.
But the center, no, not of my own world so much, but of my own life.
Mm.
You see, your life and your world is different. Like we just described, your world can be going on all right. You're driving your car, you have food in your belly, you have money in your bank account, you are talented, skillful, whatever. But somehow, and this time, the feeling wasn't that something is missing. The feeling was, I'm not operating from the center of my life.
From the center of my life.
You see me difference?
I do.
Right.
I do.
So I remember doing that drawing. Now, the processes that took place between that time and that time, I remember again another instance where money was just stolen from my account digitally. You know, when these fantastically talented people who help themselves to your earnings.
Right.
And I said to
Some
myself,
talented folks.
oh my goodness, some talented folks. And what struck me during that time, LaMondre, is that other funds were supposed to come to me, but they never reached my other bank accounts. They were like held up in space. So people swiped my money, right? And whatever dummy card they used, they checked to see if there was a balance. There was a balance. They ran and took my money. I had plans for my money. And other monies coming to me didn't reach me. What do I do then? You know what I did? I went out and purchased an item for $65 that I've never done before. Because what I realized, LaMondre, is that your sense of wealth doesn't necessarily come from the dollars and cents you have in the bank account. I know that the Forbes magazine tracks how much money the richest people in the world earns. But since the majority of us are not millionaires or trillionaires or billionaires yet, I want to put forward that our attitudes about money can keep us strapped, stuck, or our attitudes can release us and allow more to flow to you. That's why I spoke of the story about the gift card coming to me. That's why I talk about the story of doing a money journal. It's about your headspace. The moment I could not access or put my hand on my monies is when I released my money fears and my money stuckness.
And that's why you purchased the item, to release that fear, because once that happened to you, you recoiled. You do what I say, get small. You got small. And making that purchase of something that was different, that you've never had before, that you would never purchase before, that freed you up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then all the money that was held in abeyance started to come into the accounts. Not great large sums, but what I needed to do my business.
But the flow happened.
But the flow started to happen.
Right.
And from that point onwards, I noticed that if I wanted to go somewhere, take for instance, in your money journal, you write on things like getting discounts on plane fares. You write on things like getting designer clothes, not even at Goodwill, but at the regular store, you paying only 10%. That is a money saving right there.
Right.
And so it's a matter of digging deeper than just the surface.
Right. Just in the dollars and cents that was spent, but also where the benefits come, where the discounts come from. As you said, finding a coin on the ground, those kinds of things. I think this is really interesting, and I think it's so interesting because we're talking about how to get unstuck, and you've mentioned several different ways, different strategies, different techniques that will allow people to begin to open up. And that's what it seems like. Everything that you mentioned is about an opening. We talked about the affirmations. We talked about looking inward spiritually. We even talked about money and journaling and those kinds of things. So all of those things are about being open and just opening yourself, because and this is an analogy that just popped into my head. Being stuck is like being closed. Even though everything is moving around you and all those kinds of things, that feeling of no mobility, that feeling of stagnation, that feeling of I can't move, I'm stuck, is really about being closed. So all of those things, the affirmation, it opens up the faith gates, the looking at other beliefs and other ways of thinking about the world. It opens up. It just opens you up to other levels. And I think that is the thing that really helps to break that. If there was one thing that you could leave with someone who is listening to this right now, that would be the quintessential boost that would get them to the movement, what would it be? Integrity
and intention. By this, I mean, you hear me talking about journaling, drawing a circle, drawing a picture of yourself at 10 years old. You hear me talking about reading, having a pregnancy, going through the motions. You'll hear me talking about all of these things. But that's my story. That's my story. You may be the person who thinks what I'm talking about is airy-fairy, touchy-feely, hocus-pocus. It is not. But here is what is real, no matter what it is that you choose to do to open yourself and unstuck yourself. Integrity and intention. By integrity, I mean this. What is your truth? What is your personal truth that you stand on? What are you about? What is it that you hope to leave from the world? If someone wakes you up at 10 o'clock at night, will you be the same person 10 o'clock in the morning? No, don't wake me up 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to slap you. But I'm still the same person 10 o'clock in the morning.
Because I slap you in the morning too. So is that what it is?
But my point is integrity. Look up the definition of that word. That's very important. Intention. What do you intend? Sometimes we do things, LaMondre, and we say, we're going to do this because we think that such and such need our help. The truth is, are you really doing it from your egocentric point of view? Are you doing it really for you so that the person can say, oh, you're so great? Or are you genuinely interested in that other person's welfare? You see, if you're not genuinely interested in that person's welfare, keep your money in your pocket, keep your help to yourself, move along. And guess what? Even if you're not genuinely interested in them and you really want them to celebrate you because you have helped them, then accept and believe that truth and act accordingly. But if no praise comes from that person, live with it. You made a choice. So it's integrity and intention.
Integrity and intention. Totlyn, how can people get in contact with you? I know you've got some amazing things going on, and I think that this is going to be a banner year for you, and especially the work you're doing at helping people to become unstuck and really realizing the potential that they have within them. So how can people get in contact with you? Because I'm sure that there's some folks who want to share in all this goodness.
Well, part of the goodness is an enrichment event that we have coming up in honor of International Women's Day. Now, we have a lot of things going on for women across the world and empowering women and all of that. It can't be a one-day holiday or one-day celebration. It has to be a continuous experience. So we have an event called Gold Speak Women. It's the second year where we have a platform of women who seek to enrich.
Powerful women.
Powerful women, powerful women. And I also use that word tenderly, powerful, because again, we have a lot of powerful people who do powerfully not so great things.
Right.
So we do have a group of very experienced, dynamic people, women who will be speaking powerful stories for real from the platform. And easily I can be contacted by my name. Anybody, you can put my name in Google. You can find me in Google. Yeah, I've Googled myself. So
I've Googled myself for a time or two. I don't know if I was supposed to, but anyway.
And I like what I see that Google has of me. So that's Totlyn Oliver.
Spell that.
That's Totlyn Oliver, Oliver. But even more intimately, my email address is Totlyn, my first name, Totlyn, my middle initial A, and my last name, Oliver, Oliver. So that's Totlyn A. Oliver at gmail.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Totlyn, thank you so much for being my guest today on 5 P with LaMondre. I certainly am encouraged and inspired by the insights that you've shared, and I know that you are as well. And even as you listen to this, I definitely get in contact with Totlyn and take a look at some of the things she has out there. As I said, she's got Jamaica 101, and she also has Win at Speaking, which is the book, 2 books that she's authored. And she's also the author of numerous articles that are out there. So thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and we certainly do appreciate that. Well, that's about all the time that I have for 5P with LaMondre. And this is LaMondre reminding you that today is the perfect day to begin being the change that you want to see. As always, live big, live full, live authentic. God bless.